What if you did everything right to save your pet, yet they still ended up hurt? Vets across the world are faced with this guilt every day due to the veterinary labor shortage that is forcing them to choose what pets get helped first. In urban areas like Long Island, New York, there's a greater strain on this issue caused by the dense population and exponentially rising number of pet owners. This is The Labor of Love, hosted by Catherine Goodhart, and we're going to find out what caused this labor shortage and if there are any solutions to this pressing problem. According to a study conducted in 2020, prior to the pandemic, the American Veterinary Medical Association predicted that by 2033, the United States could be facing a shortage of 50 to 140,000 physicians in both primary and specialty care. A major contributing factor of this issue is due to the large number of workers who are of age to retire, but many other components not involving age have created this disparity as well. The pandemic created a surge of pet owners across the globe, but specifically in the US, with Mars Veterinary Health reporting that pet care appointments increased by 6.5% in 2021. This increase affects all areas in the US, but puts the largest demand for more labor in urban areas. I wanted to find out more about this pressure put on the veterinary field in urban areas, so I reached out to an LIU professor, vet tech, and pet insurance worker all in one, Margaret Kelly.
So interestingly enough, and not to sound too jaded, and I speak for myself, but I think I also speak for, if you were to sit down and have a conversation with other veterinary professionals that have been here for a while, I would say within the past decade or so, we've really started to see a twofold thing. So veterinary medicine has really started to take off in terms of the modalities that we have, right? So, 10, 15 years ago, like CT machines and MRI machines and ultrasound machines were, things that were reserved for teaching hospitals like Cornell and Tufts and UC Davis. And now those modalities for diagnostics are actually in specialty hospitals. So like VMCLI, LIVS, they have those capabilities, and many other practices on Long Island have those as well. So we started to see all of these things that we could do that were not as accessible prior. And then we also saw this advent of corporate medicine coming into private practice. So like VCA popped up, Blue Pearl popped up, Banfield popped up. So we started to have this mixture of corporate culture, if you will, coming into a field that was already starting to advance very, very quickly in terms of diagnostic modalities and things like that. And then what we saw was, with those modalities and with that corporate medicine came in, there started to become this very apparent, it seemed, disparity in what finances were available. So now you had, a local veterinarian who he or she had built her own business themselves. And now you have them competing with a major corporation like VCA or Banfield, who's essentially owned by Mars, the candy company. So there is this big disparity. And I think I'm trying not to sound that jaded, but like the biggest thing is, and I have said this over and over again, specifically since the advent of COVID, is that the veterinary field was having its back pushed up against the wall. And we were all looking at something's got to give. Like there's going to be a major change. A lot of us are burning out way too fast. And a lot of that does focus on finances that, the local veterinarian couldn't keep up with Mars anymore. Like they weren't offering 401ks and dental and, life insurance to employees. They couldn't. It wasn't that type of situation. So now they were losing their staff to corporate medicine. And then what do you do with that? How do you survive in that environment? And then COVID hit. And then, as I have coined personally, the industry broke. It was breaking, and COVID broke it.
With this complication of corporations and new technology further impacting the financial strain on vets and vet techs, this has caused a serious burden of burnout. Although this burnout is not deterring people from being interested in the practice, it is creating a necessity for students going into the field to be prepped on this complication created by the labor shortage.
This field is very, I think, depending on your personality, an emotionally taxing field. So I was a veterinary technician for about 6 years, I guess. And I just started to feel what I didn't know then, I do now, is burnout. I just was, not happy anymore, not looking forward to going to work anymore, kind of like feeling the physical symptoms of burnout. And I started to look at what other opportunities there were. And I found a random job on, I think it was like, I don't know, LinkedIn or something, that BOCES was looking for an animal health instructor. So I was like, oh, like maybe I just need something to like break it up, like something that's outside of vet med. And I applied, did not think I was going to get hired. I got hired at the interview, and I was kind of thrown into the world of education, which I quickly realized I really, really liked.
Among Margaret's students at LIU is one of my best friends and veterinary technologist majors, Skylar Francois. As she prepares to apply to several of the 32 veterinary graduate programs available in just the US alone, I asked her about this labor shortage and how she has already experienced its effects.
I have definitely seen it on my externships through school. After they kind of showed me the ropes, I was essentially a vet tech there, and it was like one vet tech calls in sick. Thank God, they had someone else, because if not, things got crazy, and it's just like, you really see how much they rely on their already small staff, that even one person out is really detrimental to the day. And even in, my shelter practice that I also volunteer at, these aren't even veterinary professionals, they're volunteers, but it's also hard for them to get spays and neuters done. They don't have a veterinarian on staff. It's very difficult for them to get these cats the care that they need. They're obviously getting it done, but it's definitely harder. They used to rely a lot on our local shelters. They used to do huge spay and neuter clinics all the time for shelters, for anybody, at really low cost, but a lot of them cut it, especially when COVID started. They cut these programs, and it's very difficult all across the board in the field right now.
As mentioned before, the overall largest problem causing the labor shortage is not having enough finances to support the industry.
I think a big reason is salary for veterinarians and vet techs. I know a lot of people think that veterinary professionals make a lot of money because they go and they get this huge bill at the vet when they go and take their pet in. But it's definitely not the case. Even when I first started this program, one of my very first classes, one of the very first days, talked about money. They started preparing us about what we'd be making as veterinarians and vet techs. It has dramatically changed in the 3 years that I've started, mainly because of the shortage. People are leaving the field because they're not getting paid enough. So it is causing clinics and these new bigger corporations to pay more, which is a slight upside to the shortage. But it is sad that that's what it took for people to start being paid fairly.
Even with this increase in wages, it is still not enough to sustainably support the workers in this field. Many continue to struggle paying off student loans and debt from their undergraduate and doctoral programs, which further leads to burnout and only continues to increase this shortage. So, are there any solutions to this growing problem?
I don't think it's really going to be fixed anytime soon. I mean, we have students coming in and, going through school and stuff, but it's still, is it enough to really have an impact right now? I don't know. So I definitely think it's more of like a long-term issue that, maybe the AVMA has to be taking a look at and trying to step in and fix things. I don't know if it can really be fixed like locally and Obviously, better pay and better benefits would definitely encourage more people to come into the field and stay in the field. But I don't know if that's going to produce enough people to really have an impact right now.
There was just a post on Facebook not that long ago. In fact, I think it was in the past 72 hours, where a veterinarian posted, "Another great day. Had to euthanize a dog for a completely treatable position because the clients didn't have $5,000 to $8,000 to treat it." So, when you do that, I think that post, which I've seen so many times, and I've been there, I have physically been there and felt that internally on my side, where the connection between finances and burnout just collide with one another. So can we fix it immediately? No, it's not an immediate fix. I would say it's probably a potential 5-10 year fix, but the industry as a whole has to come together and kind of move as a pack that this is what we're going to do. Some practices have had great success, and they're like, fees are the fees. There's a few, mom and pop veterinarians that I go into that are holding strong. They are short staffed, but they're holding on. They have a good group. Their group isn't leaving, although small. Then you're kind of looking at it. It's like, well, you just have a really big influx of clientele, but they have a strong group. And then you have other ones that there's been an exodus, and they're barely holding on because they don't have enough vets to see the clients. They don't have techs to do what they need to do. So it's definitely not an easy fix, but in my opinion, we need something to start to pad the financial problem in the industry, and subsequently then start to stop having to have those conversations constantly of, this is what I need to do to save your pet. No, I can't do that.
Although there was so much more to be said by Skylar and Margaret, they have helped make it clear that if we continue ignoring giving the vet industry its well-deserved and proper financial backing, it's only bound to collapse in on itself. If this industry had finances under control, more workers would stay in the field and could lead to them becoming educators for doctorate and undergraduate programs, meaning more veterinary schools could be opened and labor could be sustained. Until then, we must remain aware of this ever-growing problem and become more educated on how to care for our pets and keep them healthy, or be ready to pay the price.